Hello, everyone. Erik here, and I'm just kind of in the middle of something. It is related to the radio show, and I have a little time on my own this weekend, and just kind of reflecting on my message that I put on Twitter and Facebook about this hiatus that I'm on. I thought that you, my listeners, deserved an explanation. And I'm a terrible writer, and usually in these cases, people will write a note. And I've done that in the past. It's just that I'm not a very good writer, and it takes way too long. And I can usually say the things that I'm thinking faster into a microphone, of course, than I can typing out on a keyboard. And I've been thinking about this for quite some time, and that is whether I say something or do something. And there have been tweets from followers and Facebook messages and emails, and they're wondering how I'm doing and things of that sort. And it's easy for me to just say I'm fine, but I'm not. I have first world problems. And that's basically what this is. And it feels so silly for me to do this and kind of complain about things and whine about things when really I have it pretty good. I'm living in a 4-bedroom house. I mean, it's not mine. I rent it, but still, it's a really nice home. I live in a great neighborhood. I got 2 pretty good kids. I got a great wife, and I'm still working and doing the things that I want to do. Not as much as I thought I would. Now, looking back over the past year, coming up to the 1-year anniversary of me getting laid off from a job that I loved, and I mean really loved, and was ripped away from colleagues who I never called colleagues, ripped away from a great bunch of people who I love to go to work for. And that sort of stuff really haunts me to this day. And the reason that it continues to pop up in my head is that I never did find another full-time job. And that was because, a month after I was laid off, I started working for this fantastic guy out in Elora, about a half an hour from where I live. And, he's not in a position to hire me full-time, but he's trying to throw as much work at me as possible. And my hope is that eventually that will lead to either like regular hours that I'm working throughout the week, or that he eventually, hires me on as a full-time member of his team. I don't know if either or are going to happen, but I kind of hope that it does. And so, work has always been on my mind, and it's always something that I think about every day. And the fact that, if there's a point where, work dries up for him, then I'm not going to be able to, pay my bills and do things of that sort. And then that directly affects me, my mood, my brain, the way I react to things. And, it doesn't take much for me to slip into a depression where I pretty much just want to give up. How does this all reflect back on the show and Cinematic Sound and me doing this today? Well, when I get into that point, I then feel like if I'm doing a radio program, and I'm not sure how many of you know the process or what goes through to make this show that I do, that I love and that I'm proud of. It takes hours and many hours. There's a lot of writing. There's a lot of research. Many people have said that I have an encyclopedic knowledge of film music and film scores and movies. Well, I really don't. I've seen a lot of movies, but I haven't seen a lot of movies. I've listened to a lot of film scores, but there's a lot that I've missed. I've got 6,000 scores, and a good chunk of that number I haven't listened to. I mean, I'm still discovering music to this day, even though I've been doing this show for almost 22 years. Anyway, going back to the amount of work that is put into this program that I do, I don't make any money off of it. And I don't think I was ever expecting that I would make money doing this show. It'd be great if a radio station picked me up. And, I'm not saying that I'm not going to work towards something like that, although that's something that I'm thinking that I might do. Although the chances of, let's say I live in Ontario or near the Greater Toronto area, there's really one classical station that I think would pick up something like this, but I've never tried syndication. I don't know how much that pays. I don't know what that does, but, and I've never really thought that I should ask people for money for this show, and that just brings up a whole other set of problems and issues concerning my show that I really don't want to go into here today. I always felt that over the years, my reward was the music, the free music. And I've been getting free music for 20 some odd years now. I've got a lot of music, and I'm grateful for that. And my goal of this show was never to make money, but it was to promote film music. And my job was to take the music that these record labels were sending my way, and I would promote the album as a thank you for supplying the music. So I'm getting all this free music I don't have to pay for, but on the flip side, I'm hoping that somebody listens to the show and listens to an album, and they hear it, like it, and then go and buy an album. That's how I have been running Cinematic Sound Radio since the beginning. Even when I was on Mohawk College Radio, that was the whole point. I just wanted people listening to this and to enjoy it. That might be naive. That just might be, I'm not digging deeper and being more ruthless and cutthroat and trying to actually make something out of this. And that's quite a possibility. We could probably go into that sometime later. But anyway, back to the amount of work that it takes. If I could say, it takes maybe 10 to 12 hours to produce a show. And a lot of that is done after hours, late at night, sometimes right up to the last minute. I usually have to submit shows to W Rock Radio Weekly, and sometimes I don't get a show to them until, early Saturday morning. That's not when I want to give them the show, because my show schedule is on Sunday, and the last thing I want to do is have people do work over the weekend trying to get my show up on their station, but it's just the way it works. And there's just some days where I'm not motivated to do it. I love doing this show. I really do. But again, going back to the show being free and me spending so much time on it, when maybe I should take those hours and look for something that's going to bring in cash, that's going to help provide for my family. And that's where last week I came to realization that I'm spending a lot of time working on something that is essentially for me, and it's free. And I'm if I can go in a little bit deeper into this, and the reason why I'm also thinking of just kind of giving this up for now, the numbers, when I'm talking about numbers, again, numbers, don't take this the wrong way, don't necessarily mean a lot to me, because again, I'm not bringing any income or I'm not monetizing the show. So numbers, it's like, I don't care if I get 5 listeners or 5,000 listeners, but I actually do care. And the reason I care is that I do spend 10 to 12 hours on the show. And then when I see, okay, let's just go back a little bit further, where my show isn't on like a podcasting service. And so I'm not 100% sure whether the analytics that I'm getting, the stats that I'm receiving from my hosting server, which is where the entire show is hosted, are accurate to the amount of listens and downloads that I'm getting. It's really cryptic, and I'm trying to use their stats software, and I honestly don't think it's giving me the right numbers. So then I moved on to something called PodTrack, and if I insert PodTrack's little URL, I guess key or I don't know what they call it. Anyway, I have to add this tag at the beginning of my MP3 file. And then what it will do is that every time that track is played with that tag, it will then send out the information back to PodTrack, and it will tell them, whether someone listened to it as a stream or downloaded it. And I'm hoping that this software is a bit more accurate than what I was getting through my hosting provider. So I started this, I don't know, maybe 3 months ago, I'm thinking, and I've started adding this little tag to all the shows that are part of the podcast that are on the RSS feed on iTunes and Stitcher and everywhere else that the podcast can be found. And these files were also added on to the streaming files at cinematicsound.net. So I thought, hey, you know what? Maybe this will tell me, a more accurate, give me some more accurate numbers as to, how my shows do. And then there's a lot of promotion on my part that goes into these programs. And so, if I don't do that, the shows suffer, most definitely. And what I'm seeing right now is that, I mean, I don't, I'm not 100% certain when the periods when I started with PodTrack, and I think it was back in the beginning of March. And so if I look back at the shows that I have uploaded since March, then that I guess starts with Jason Drury's fantastic interview with Mike Ross Trevor. And that brought in about 1,400 listeners. I added my favorite scores of 2017, which I thought would do really, really well. And since March 14th, I'm getting 2,000 downloads. And, if I look at the stats, that's just the show. If I look at the stats, I mean, I can't really get, by source. Let's see. And I can't really do it by show. But, that's 2,000. I thought maybe I was going to do a bit better. My favorite Western tracks, which seemed to be a very popular show through social media, the response I got from it, the interaction that I had, 1,500 listens. Jason Drury's show, episode 8, got 1,100 listens. I then uploaded Lost in Space and Ready Player One, Max and Me show. That was 1,600. And, Jason's episode 9 of the archive, which was uploaded on April 23rd, it's now May 5th, and that's just past 1,000. I don't know whether those are good numbers or not. I mean, right now it says that my 90-day downloads are 15,000. And look, I'm not complaining that people are listening to this show. I am so happy for every single person that decided to take the time to click on this link or click on those links and listen to the show. I appreciate all you people. I'm just thinking that the time associated with this, the amount of work that I do that goes into this show, and the amount of promotion that I do, again, the amount of listeners, the show is not monetized or anything of that sort. And so, I could look at this as somebody who's like looking for money and Patreon supporters and whatever and say, hey, how come I'm not getting more downloads? But I mean, I don't know whether these are good numbers or these are great numbers. I don't know what the numbers are like for other shows. And I'm looking at, a lot of new programs that are coming out and they're just killing it. And I'm super, super happy for those programs. Trust me, I am. I couldn't be happier. And as you know, maybe you might not know, I'm a huge supporter of Film Music Radio. I have a giant curated list of podcasts and other radio shows on my own site. I love promoting other people's shows. I just don't know whether I'm getting, I don't know. I don't know what these are good numbers. I don't know whether it is, again, worth doing this show for, maybe 1,000 listens. And that might seem petty. It probably is, but it's a bit disheartening. And I mean, I only have to blame myself because maybe I'm not giving the people who are listening to the show or people who want to listen to film music or people who want to listen to podcasts what they want to listen to. Podcasts, my type of programming, those music podcasts are, I think, few and far between. Podcasts are mostly talk shows or information based. I think a lot of the more popular ones are not standard like radio shows like I do. And I understand that. There's some and some of the more popular soundtrack shows are the interview based ones. However, I am still shocked and blown away and flabbergasted, befuddled that a show like The Annotator isn't doing as well as it should be. Christopher Coleman, I think, has a great idea. And I think him, starting with trying to jump off of Song Exploder's popularity and format and bringing that to film music, I honestly thought that would be the film music show that I would have seen first breaking it into new and noteworthy and being, one of those podcasts that these bigger outlets write about and how interesting it is. And nobody seems to have picked it up. And I'm not sure what these other shows that are doing that are uber popular. I don't know what they're doing and what they're doing right. And then I start thinking about my show and maybe it's time to change the format and what I'm doing. Well, first of all, the one issue that I think might be hurting the program is its length. And I did put out a poll a few months ago talking about, would people rather listen to the 2-hour show or they want something shorter? And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the shorter option was the most popular one. people would be more happy with something that was along the lines of 60 minutes to 90 minutes. And trust me, I'd be happy with that too, because that's less work. But I still have to do a 2-hour show for W Rock Radio, and that's the dilemma. And I always figured that presenting longer suites was far more interesting than just playing 1 or 2 tracks. Because right now I play roughly, 10, 12, 15-minute suites from the album. And I always figured, even at the beginning, that was a perfect number for me to play. I wouldn't be playing the whole album, but enough to give the listeners a good idea of what the score sounded like. And based on 15 minutes, they would be able to make the decision as to whether they liked it or not. With a 60-minute show, I'd kind of have to rejig things. I'd have to maybe play less or play less albums, which I don't think is a bad idea. And I think that with so many podcasts out there, the 2-hour time limit, I just can't get onto the iPods or the digital devices that I want to get onto, because people see the 2-hour time limit and they're like, well, I just don't have time for that. I'll listen to a 20-minute show here or 40-minute show here, or if there's an interesting interview, then they'll stick around for an hour or so instead of listening to a 2-hour traditional radio show as a podcast. I'm just thinking out loud here. The other thing that I might plan on doing, and I've been thinking about this over the past week, is to just completely rejig the way that I do the show. When I started with W Rock Radio, I thought it was a great way for me to have something that was strictly formatted, that I would play maybe 3 or 4 new releases a show, play a John Williams album because I like him so much, and highlight his great work, play a re-recording, an archival album, a video game album within 2 hours, and that's a good way of showcasing the best of, film, TV, and video game music on the show. However, I started getting into these top 10 shows, which I think are just so much fun to produce. And then I had other ideas. I like the re-recording shows. I like the theme shows as well. But then I am absolutely bombarded each week. And a lot of the people that have been into the industry or have reviewed film music know that once you get on to you get on these mailing lists, you're just bombarded with albums. And it's not a bad thing. It's just that there's no way for me to cover all of that. And then I thought, with the W Rock radio shows, that, playing 4 or 5 new releases would allow me to try to cover as many as possible. I don't think I'm getting much satisfaction out of that. And maybe it's also that I'm not getting a lot of satisfaction out of the new stuff that's coming out. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I download from these record labels, and again, I appreciate everything that they do, and I don't think they expect me to play everything that they send me, but there's stuff that I'm just completely not interested in it. And I'm thinking that in order for me to get back into this show, maybe it's time for me to be a little bit selfish and start playing the stuff that I truly love, or that I think that you might love, and only do like a new releases show once a month or so. But even during those new releases show, just playing the 6, 7, or 8 scores that I really, really like, that I think that you might like. And that's not really fair to the other ones that I'm going to say, nope, I'm not going to play it. But I think that I also have to enjoy the music that I'm playing in order to feel motivated and feel inspired to continue with this show. I don't know. I'm also thinking maybe I should do these, what would I call them? Heart-to-hearts once in a while. I mean, for those that even got this far into this broadcast, did you enjoy this? Did you like me just rambling and complaining that I have a podcast? It's, again, I think I said this at the beginning of this little rant, that this is just so petty and so first world. But this is the world I'm living in, and this is the reason why, after 22 years, my interest in this show is kind of waning. It's not as interesting as it used to be. And I also think that, the cool thing that I used to do many, many years ago is that I would get the jump on everybody, and I'd be able to play that album for the very first time for you people. And I think the last time I did that, that's when the show explodes. It's really neat. And, I remember the Phantom Menace days when I shut down the server at Mohawk College. I remember premiering Skyfall, and that still to this day is the most popular day in the history of cinematic sound. And I've never been able to replicate that. I mean, the place just went crazy during that day. Everybody wanted to hear the brand new James Bond soundtrack. But nowadays, everybody can hear it on Spotify or YouTube or whatever streaming device or streaming service you subscribe to. And I rarely get the jump on exclusives. There are a few things that I do get before you get a chance to hear it through those services. But I guess, again, it's few and far between. And that used to be really cool. I used to love playing a whole bunch of new stuff. So that's kind of why I want to go deeper into my own collection right now and even play some of the older stuff that might either be rare or obscure or maybe you haven't heard before. There are a couple of other ideas that I want to try out, and I'm not sure how this is going to work, but I was thinking of doing some live shows, all request shows for the listeners, so you can have an opportunity to request a track. Interviews is just something that I never really got into. And I love talking to composers, but if I was going to do an interview or interviews, I would love to be the one that really just kind of stirs the pot a bit, that asks some questions that don't normally get asked, things that maybe these guys haven't said before. Again, here I am criticizing other shows and things of that sort, as if I'm, the guy who knows it all. I mean, I don't. It's clear that I don't. So what's the point of all this? I don't know. I just had to, I guess, air my dirty laundry and just kind of tell you where I am and what's been affecting me and why I feel this way. And if I lose listeners, I apologize that this is what brought you, that this is what made you turn me off. But if I'm going to be back. At some point I will be back. I have to be back. I think about the show every day. I really do. But I also got to find a way to bring more people on board that want to hear this show. I'm not really 100% sure how to do that. And that's my problem. But again, I appreciate, the 1,663 people that downloaded my latest show, which came out almost a month ago. And I really appreciate every single one of you for giving it a listen. I also appreciate every single one of you that got through this entire broadcast. This might be something I eventually delete somewhere down the road, but yeah, thank you very much for listening. Thanks for your ear, and thank you for coming back every week or whenever a new show is uploaded. And I just want to thank again Jason Drury, Tim Burden, David Cosina, and anybody else that has contributed to Cinematic Sound Radio over the years. I truly do appreciate all the time and effort that you put into this program. And hopefully sooner than later, I get my mojo back and I'll be back behind the mic. And instead of bitching and complaining, we'll be talking about film, television, and video game scores and playing more great music for you. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take care and happy listening.